And she went in details of agriculture, but more than that, I think the big picture of a budget 1.5 years before the Lok Sabha election is that it's about continuity, it's about pursuit of certain policies and frameworks which Prime Minister Modi had been talking about. For example, startup, the culture of taxation, the culture of return, and most important of all, which we discussed before the budget started, retweaking the government policies in the way so that the servicing part of it, the customer interface of it is smooth. On this esteemed panel, I am joined by Rakesh Khar, Brajesh Pandey, and my colleague Karthik Malhotra. So first coming to you, Rakesh, what's the big picture of this budget? Can I say this for sure, that's a well-rounded middle-class budget which Nirmala Sitharaman presented today?
Absolutely, Karthik. We had mentioned that it's going to be a middle-class budget because last 4 budgets, the middle-class piece was missing. The bottom of the pyramid and the corporate tax cuts which we spoke about in the earlier part of the discussion, it's an out-and-out middle-class budget. It's a quarter agriculture budget. It's a sustained infra-push budget. And I'm happy to note the rural infrastructure is also, there is an outlay for that as well. And above all, I think the message that middle class matters as a vote bank is very, very important in this budget. Now, let me just quickly get into the middle class, key tenets of the middle class budget, as we call it. One is the tax slab rationalization. There are 3 new schemes. There is an independent scheme for savings, small-scale savings for women. As Women Finance Minister, there's a new scheme which will be valid till the elections are over, 2025. 2 lakhs with a 2-year rollover period. And the senior citizen cap, 15 lakhs has been raised to 30 lakhs. That's for the first time in several years. It took years and decades to reach 15 lakhs, now it's 30 lakhs. And the third one, joint accounts, small-scale saving, MIS, what's it called, post office schemes. And for a couple, husband and wife, it has gone from 9 lakh to 15 lakhs. So, tax slabs and these new 3 schemes put together, it's a middle-class budget. And if I add the PAN universalization, there's PAN will become the core, instrument of your transactions with the government and in the financial sector space. I think the middle class has been at the focus of it.
If I may interject, small savings are very important in the economy. They don't become part of a discussion in a larger picture, but small savings have a substantial impact on the way economy function. Now, if you look at the reorganization of the tax slabs, has it been done to increase small savings in the banks?
This is basically to create more disposable income in the hands of the people. What they do with that, that is secondary. That's discretionary, if I use the right word. But most importantly, there are parked funds which were not generating enough returns. See, either the choice is to go to the stock market where there's a risk element fitted. But if it's a government small savings scheme which gives you much better returns, then you're obviously far better placed as a small investor. So I think the budget would score and ticks all the right boxes. I really missed one couple piece on the lighter note. There was one little banter when she said polluted vehicles and she said politics. So and then she said, did I say the right thing? And sorry to disappoint you, there was no poetry this time.
There was no poetry. But Brajesh, what about the political messaging of the budget? There were a lot of things which, I noticed, for example, central assistance to Upper Bhadra project in Karnataka. She is releasing 5,300 crore. Now, Karnataka is a very, very important state for Bharatiya Janata Party, only southern state where it has a presence. So, in a way, she has ticked all the boxes.
Well, absolutely. As Rakesh was very rightly pointing out, for the last several years, the one area which was always taken for granted was the middle class, and I think the kind of thumbs up it has received also from the Sensex points to the fact that how this time middle class aspirations has been taken care of. Very importantly, that in this year 9 states are going to go to poll. Karnataka is extremely important because BJP has been going for a major southern surge. They are trying their level best to make their presence felt in the state of Telangana. So Karnataka becomes all the more important for them because the Congress is also giving them tough fight. If they're able to retain Karnataka, they'll be able to sell their southern success story in a more profound and prophetic manner. But if they're not able to retain, then it'll become a very a setback, a big setback for the BJP. So I think though that 5,300 crores apart, the kind of general sentiment the tax rebate and others have given, which is usually missing, whenever this budget comes up, is definitely a thumbs up as far as the electorates are concerned.
Karthik, if I keep aside the tax slabs, if I just keep aside the tax slabs, in your opinion, in context of the policy framework, which are the three biggest takeaways of Nirmala's announcement today? Which caught your eye?
So if we keep the tax aside, and that tax reduction in outgo of tax is actually going to give more power in the hands of the consumers to spend. So the demand side economics will kick in, but we'll keep that aside. I think apart from that, it's pretty clear in the budget that for the coming year, the heavy lifting will be done by the government, not as much by the corporate sector. So if you look at the capex investments that have been mentioned in the budget, so there's a 79,000 crore outlay, which is up 66% on affordable housing. So that is investment going back into the economy, subsidized by the government or funded by the government. Look at the railway outlay of 2.41 lakh crore rupees. That's the highest ever it has been. Again, the government is investing, which is going to up the GDP quotient as far as the contribution of the government is concerned. I think what I really want to touch upon is the fact that for the first time we have actually seen a real push towards adopting a green future. So green growth is the message which is coming from the budget, and a 35,000 crore rupee outlay for carbon neutralization and for energy transmission investments. I think these are three big industries and three big sectors to watch out for in the coming financial year.
So are you saying that the focus on lithium, the exemption for EV batteries is part of all that framework?
That's right. So the 35,000 crore rupees which is parked for green growth includes, to my mind, the lithium ion and the components that go into EV battery manufacturing
and
as
that continues to be our Achilles heel. You know, despite we want to go for green energy, we don't have the reserves. The reserves are in Congo and Peru. We don't have those manufacturing capacity. They are in southern Shanghai and Guangzhou province, but we need them for our e-rickshaws. Is that policy going to take care of the whole supply cycle?
Right. So I don't think we should expect results in the coming financial year. This is the investment which is going to accrue over a period of time, and that is when the results of these investments will take shape.
Okay. Rakesh, you know, the first thing which he said was, I am reducing basic custom duty. The first line of our finance minister was from 21% to 13%.
But this is in select sectors. These are sectors where there is a push for domestic manufacturing. Like she mentioned, toys.
Yes.
Electricals is the new,
yes.
electronics. These are areas where Government of India wants to push domestic manufacturing. And on the green piece, Karthik mentioned. So I think they've stuck to the Atmanirbhar piece when it comes to rationalizing the customs duty. There is no great surprise to my mind, unless until the fine print reveals one. I don't think there is any great surprise. And on the green piece, this scrappage policy, which was announced in the last budget, they're taking it deep down to the states now. They're nudging states to scrap their old vehicles. So there's push for EV. So at the micro level and the macro level, both. The economic survey also had for the first time a chapter on green economy and this climate change. So that messaging right from the Prime Minister, she quoted the Prime Minister when she said that we have a 2075 net carbon zero emission target. So that is in alignment. And the good thing is that budgets talking about green, greening the entire ecosystem is a welcome change. On the key message that I think we're missing right away is that the finance minister took the battle to states. What is happening is that center's capex is in a fast track. They have upped the outlays there again, as Karthik mentioned. States, before the budget, had so to say decelerated on their capex spending.
Correct.
Now the finance minister repeatedly said, I am nudging the state governments, she mentioned it 2, 3, 4 times, to spend money. One is the political agenda, but there is an economic agenda. Here both converge. States will have to be co-partners in the India growth story. They have their own challenges. They have their own social sector schemes. But if they don't see eye to eye and states draw their own economic agenda outside of the national economic agenda, we have a problem at hand. And the other message she sent to states on the political front is fiscal discipline. See, some states are running the course in terms of spending on things which may not be generally very, very healthy economics. So she said, she herself laid the target that 2025 she'll come back to 4.5 fiscal deficit target, which is again in the realm of a possibility. She's been making those statements, but now that the recovery is complete, fiscal prudence, as we mentioned in the first part of the speech, should be a top priority, not just for the center, but also for the states.
Brijesh, physical prudence, at time when you have elections in 7+ states, fiscal prudence when you have Lok Sabha election, fiscal prudence when you have 100% subsidy scheme for power, when you have 100% subsidy scheme for water, when you have 100% doles for, for example, women who don't work, which recently a politician from the Congress party announced in Karnataka. How do you reach fiscal prudence, You have 40% of the state budget is being diverted out to schemes like these.
Well, absolutely, and this is not the first time. The Prime Minister has, time and again touched upon the freebie culture, the revdi culture, which he's been talking about, and how this will lead to a financial disaster if we stop. If you don't stop marrying our immediate political goal with the overall fiscal health of the country. But unfortunately, when you are in power, you speak a certain language. When you are outside the power, you speak a certain language. These instant noodles kind of gratification, like giving 2,000 rupees to women who are of one particular family in a particular state which goes to poll, or giving you 300 units of electricity, or going back to the OPS old pension scheme, they wreak havoc on the financial structure of the state. But the point is that nobody is listening to it. The kind of political gain is so much that now after Himachal Pradesh, now even Devendra Fadnavis, despite the Prime Minister having spoken several times about how you have to ensure that the revdi culture should stop. Now Devendra Fadnavis has also come out and said that that this is not that bad. That we may have a relook at the OPS scheme. So this shows about how once you have hedged political fortunes to these kind of quick fix schemes, then the result is an economic disaster.
You're saying economic disasters are political wonders, huh?
Looks like that only. I mean, look where 300 free unit electricity has gotten a certain chief minister.
Okay, Karthik, then let me get you back on MSMEs. There are two questions: agriculture sector and MSMEs. In MSMEs, she said that MSMEs will get 95% of the forfeited accounts during COVID. Your evaluation of the MSME push of the budget?
See, I think a lot more could have been done for the MSMEs, to my mind, right? So while the finance minister pretty much quoted that it is the backbone, it is the growth engine of the economy, the engine of the economy, I think she said. Yeah, of course, it is the engine of the economy. But that engine of the economy needs to generate employment. Now, that employment will be generated if they have access to capital. So while there has been a scheme that got announced today that up to 3 crore rupees for MSMEs and for professionals up to 75 lakh rupees, etc., there is a 5% rebate. But I think the larger point being missed in this budget is around the fact that that we did not introduce PLI in any additional sector. I think we had 14 PLI sectors till the last budget. That did not get extended this year. Had there been a little more push on PLI, the whole SME sector would have got a life of its own. So I think that is something that got missed in this.
And startups, I think she gave a 1-year tax break for the startups. Is it good enough?
Yeah, so I think it is just being extended. The deadline was 31st March 2023. That 1-year holiday has been extended to 31st March 2024. But again, we've got to realize, yeah, it'll keep the startups a little more sustainable for another year. But going back to the conversation we were having before the budget, I think the startups will have to focus on their profitability. 1 more year of tax holiday is going to get over on 31st March 2024. Then what? So the larger question on profitability of startups is something that continues to
Rakesh, your take on MSME and startups?
I wish they'd done more on MSMEs. But the problem with MSMEs is there is such a large cluster. I'm saying they should have done more. And diverse. They should have done more in the context of what we discussed earlier, exports. Since exports and MSMEs are so intrinsically linked, if exports are going to be sluggish because of global, headwinds, I mean, Britain is already said to be, according to IMF, going to a recession. And, US, the interesting piece is that India and China, according to IMF, will have half of the growth next year, 2023. Correct. While as US and the entire, Europe will have just 1/10 of the growth that is expected for the entire globe in 2023. So in that sense, maybe they'll do something more closer to the elections. MSMEs also have to, come out of certain mindsets. Looking at government for credit offtake, there have been some schemes, there has been some credit offtake. It's not converting into actual manufacturing output. And we have to, so to say, expand the bouquet for MSMEs and getting into more efficient business models, that is getting into technology-led manufacturing and getting into more, learning from the startups in terms of building businesses which are, viable.
And coming back to another moot subject, which we discussed in our pre-budget programming, is agriculture. We spoke about inflation in the agriculture sector. We spoke about unemployment, disguise unemployment. She spoke about accelerator fund to fire agriculture sector. And she used the word to fire agriculture sector. Is it going to work?
See, there is, I call it a quarter of an agriculture budget, which is again a very positive thing in my opening remarks. They've raised the agriculture credit to 20 lakh crores for 23-24. Well, and that's an outlay function. The other important piece is they have linked technology to agriculture. There's a digital arm that has been now created to digitalization of the entire agri ecosystem, where she mentioned that there will be many more startups, agri-tech companies, which will, what we were discussing in the morning, agriculture has to go beyond the tradition in terms of its nomenclature. So it has to invoke the technology architecture. So I think that's a welcome step. I don't know how it will pan out, but looks like it's a good step.
But Chief, tell me, she also created a sort of a fund of 10,000 crore for the Sugar Corporation.
That's UP.
That's UP. So again, coming back, it's a half political, half social, half economic. It's like you want to reform the sector, you want to make it profitable, but every budget, you end up giving dole to that sector. Because you have powerful political parties which emanate from that party.
I hate subsidy. But people hate me for saying that.
No, you're absolutely.
No, I'll tell you. I want to ask a pertinent question.
10,000
crore,
you
remember, no, 10,000 crore. I'll give you a much bigger figure raised 10 years ago. 2008, our very, very esteemed former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram gave a 60 lakh crore farm loan waiver. I want to ask, are those farmers really doing well? Is there any audit of all these subsidies that come to our farmers, and when they actually deliver? So subsidy might bring votes, but is it always the right thing to do? Everyone in this country, like the bottom of the pyramid, that's why I'm saying the welfare economics that Modi, so to say, articulated and has executed pretty well, is not bleeding the economy. He registered the cash piece. When there is a digital architecture, money is coming to the bank, there is no leakage. I don't know all those doles that any government or Modi government gives, whether they actually reach outside of the DBT. So that's where the risk is.
Karthik, if I recall, of all the panelists, you were the only person talking about the trillion economy. And you said we are a 3.5 trillion economy. We aspire to be a bigger trillion economy. Do you think that this budget has the vision of firing us and taking us to a 6 trillion economy, 7 trillion economy?
I think it's difficult to put a number to it, honestly. Yeah, I mean, the target of
Will it
5
fire those
trillion
engines?
also, to my mind, a figure of 5 trillion is also a small figure. To my mind, even a $7 trillion economy by end of the decade to be the third largest economy means nothing, because the per capita GDP, which is where the real growth has to come from, where the inclusivity has to come from, is absent. In the absence of that, no matter what figure you go up to, being the largest economy and yet the most populated economy, doesn't really make much of a difference.
And lastly, she said that a fiscal deficit, and people say it's all about money, honey. So, it's 5.9%, and she said they're committed to reduce it to 4.5%.
See, the pity is we are still talking about a fiscal deficit, not a fiscal surplus. So we are talking about wanting to be the third largest economy. We want to grow to 5 trillion, but we are still talking about fiscal deficit. But of course, that's a global phenomena, and it's a very corporate phenomena. You leverage your growth, right? So you can't always be green in your P&L. So a little bit of leverage is fine, but I think 5.9% is a safe estimate.
Rakesh?
I agree with Karthik completely. I think we should look at these 5 trillion, 30 trillion numbers. There's good aspirational goals. But the moot point is, if at the bottom of the pyramid, if people don't have 2 square meals every day, it doesn't make a difference.
Okay. Now, we're at the end of our session. 1 minute to all my panelists. So, one big takeaway, starting from you, Rakesh.
It's a mini election budget, as I mentioned.
Mini election budget.
Because there were 3 missing, there was one missing plank. The bottom
when
of
an
the
economist says that, or a person with an economic background, then people need to take that seriously.
Because he has ticked a box which he didn't tick all.
If I say this, it's my job. If you say this, well, then it should worry a lot of people.
No, I'm saying that with reason and with some sense of logic, all these budgets in 8 years, now this is the 9th one, middle class has got a little bit of a shift. And in fact, Prime Minister, one of his speeches in 15th August, I don't remember the year, said that I request the middle class in India to do the heavy lifting for some time for the bottom of the pyramid.
Okay.
This is a significant statement. So I think, he feels that we've done enough of heavy lifting. That's why you see the tax slabs at the highest level, including the 1 crore
So,
plus.
Brajesh, is this an election package masquerading as a budget?
I agree with Rakesh completely, and I think in the last 8-9 budgets, all the sacrifices which were expected from the middle class, and they were and many believed that that middle class is there just to be fleeced and not to be pampered in any which way, because they also talk about the kind of political clout a middle class enjoys. It's numerically it's not that big a number which is going to make or mar the political fortune of any government. And that is the reason why middle class, and I think the best part is that, like, after a long time, we are talking about income tax slab which has brought happiness or certain things.
Actually, the joke was that the middle class under this regime is like what minorities were in the Congress regime: tied, crib, but can't go when leave. Closing comments from you, Karthik.
No, I think I agree with all of you, including you, because Karthik, you've also been.
You can have your say because you have the last word.
It is definitely a middle class budget, but I think the positive that I see in that, apart from the political positives that may or may not derive from this, the positive I see is that it definitely has scope for widening the tax net as well. So the fact that up to 7 lakh rupees of annual income, you don't have to pay a single rupee in tax, will encourage people to at least file their papers in the income tax.
So you are saying that this budget
So
will incentivize people to pay taxes.
It widens the tax net. It includes more people to come and file the income tax returns, even if it is a zero return. And of course, as and when their income goes up, their data is now with the government, and then they obviously start paying taxes when they become eligible.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah, one thing. The good news there is that it has moved from 6 crore to 6.5 crore. That's what she said. 6.5 crore pay tax.
And I think one thing that we did not touch upon, which I think is again fairly interesting, Karthikeya, if you'll permit me just 30 seconds.
Absolutely.
Is the fact that that the digital governance, national digital governance is coming in big time. The KYC is getting centralized. India Stack is going to get more sort of rich in its aggregation of data. And overall, I think this whole digital e-KYC, uniform KYC from every bank, small bank, big bank, fintech, etc., all of that is going to lead to another banking reform.
I think that's an important point you made, because she actually spoke about the fact that DigiLocker and Aadhaar, they'll be the foundation of a sort of a national identity.
That's
right. I think that's a big reform which Modi government has done. So this was our first part of our special presentation today on budget. Continue to stay tuned with News 9 Plus, because my colleague Karthik Malhotra with Krishna, with Shweta Kothari, they will be moderating a show on personal finance in 10 minutes from now. Stay tuned in, and thank you, gentlemen.